games. He's had a 45-point game, a 46-point game, and a 50-point game. This stretch, including his fourth-quarter performance in Game 3 against the Rockets, prompted Draymond Green to say he doesn't really understand what Durant is doing right now. And that may be the highest compliment an athlete can say about another athlete. Michael Wilbon on why it's all coming together for the 30-year-old.
All the boxes are already checked. League champ, twice. Scoring champ, 4 times. All-star, 10 times. All-league, perennially. Best player on the best team, that too. Kevin Durant is the real MVP now, both regular season and finals. We all know who he is, and he might just be, with all due respect to LeBron James, the best player in the world today.
Durant for 3. It's good. Kevin Durant from downtown.
11 straight seasons of scoring 25 points or more, same as Karl Malone's best stretch. Tied with MJ and Jerry West, trailing only LeBron. At 30 years old, Durant appears to have reached the point where his physical, emotional, and psychological powers have all collided to produce a superior basketball being, just as they did for Wilt in 1962, for Jordan in 1993, for Kobe in 2009, for LeBron in 2016.
Oh, blocked by James!
In an era of prolific scorers, Durant leads the playoffs in scoring, even having to share the shots with absurdly efficient teammates Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. While James Harden still needs the certainty that only a championship seems to convey, Durant knows who he is and is certain, with a 3rd championship within his reach, that the entire league and his celebrity peers do too.
And Michael Wilbon, live and in person from Houston alongside one Stephen A. Smith, back to talk about both of tonight's games, Bucks, Celtics, and Rockets, Warriors. Stephen A. Smith, the clock is starting. You have 4 minutes to talk about both games. Go.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, Sage. Thank you for your permission to talk on the NBA. Mike Wilbon, Warriors, yes, Houston Rockets, Game 4. We saw what we saw from James Harden. We also saw what we saw from Steph Curry. I'm going to bring up Klay Thompson as well because he is going to be a free agent commanding max dollars, but he has not had a great series either. So talk to me about Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and what we need to see from them in Game 4.
It's amazing the two of them are so far under 40%. Under 40% shooting for this series. And we keep waiting. A lot of people think the bust-out night is tonight. I don't know. Suppose the bust-out night is Wednesday in Game 5, and it goes to 2-2 here. I'm expecting to see one of those guys be better. But I'm also expecting the Houston Rockets to play with a lot more purpose from the beginning, not dig themselves a hole tonight, Stephen A. I think this is going to be the best game of the series, but either Steph or Klay, one of them has to resemble himself tonight. I'm going to go with Klay.
I'm going to go with Steph Curry, and here's why I'm going to go with Steph Curry. Not just his finger injury. We think about that, and we think that's inhibiting his success to some degree. How about the fact that he's had 5 fouls in each of the 3 games? He's been in foul trouble. I don't anticipate that will happen tonight. I think he'll come out aggressive. I think that he'll get open shots because both Klay and Kevin Durant will see to it along with Draymond Green, and I think that will be pivotal for him. What about Houston, though? We've seen Eric Gordon show up. I think that will continue, although I think they'll key on him a little bit. We obviously expect a lot from James Harden. How important is CP3 going to be in Game 4?
CP3 and Capella. And I know Capella's been shut down a lot by Draymond Green, not allowing that lob pass. That's just a personal win defensively, Stephen A. But you have a point. CP3, in getting to those spots, we talked about this before. It seems to me that he's still getting to those spots. The question is he shooting the ball? Is he as aggressive as we're accustomed to seeing him, particularly on his home floor, particularly against the Golden State Warriors? So, yeah, I expect big nights from both those guys tonight.
Talking to our man Jay Williams earlier this morning, he pointed out how CP3 was standing in the left corner on a couple of occasions with his hands on his knees, even though James Harden was driving to the basket. It was like he wasn't expecting to get the ball, he wasn't looking for it, and he certainly wasn't asking for it. So we'll monitor that in Game 4. Let's transition to the Eastern Conference. We've got Boston against Milwaukee. I think Boston, if they lose tonight, they lose this series in 5 games. 4 guys on Milwaukee are shooting better from three-point range than Kyrie Irving is shooting from the field. What does Boston need to do tonight, particularly with Marcus Smart coming back?
All this harmony they professed in earlier in the week, they better find some of that from the start tonight. I expect the Celtics to rebound in a major way. I mean, they got so close last year. They spent all season claiming that they were tasting this, they were going after this, they knew the faults from last year, the flaws. What happened? And so tonight's that night. Tonight is the night. If they're not going to have redemption and look at this group going forward, Stephen A., I'm with you. This series will be over back in Milwaukee if the Celtics don't win tonight.
I completely agree with you, and I'll say one thing before we go. Kyrie is struggling right now. I brought up free agency with Klay Thompson. Kyrie Irving is also going to be a free agent, not to mention the fact that you've got a situation where, again, Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, free agency with Kawhi Leonard balling the way that he balls. I've got Boston winning tonight. Who do you have?
I got Boston winning tonight. I'm undecided on the series, but it seems like everything is going through the 2-2 tie and the best of three. It seems like almost every series, if this one goes to Houston tonight.
Mike Wilbon undecided. I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised.
Undecided.
I know one person who's not undecided. That would be Sage Steele. She's never undecided. Back to you, Sage.
By the way,
Look at the time.
3 minutes and 50 seconds. First time ever Stephen A. has gone under his allotted
Got the
time
clock in his
ever.
hand, Sage.
This is shocking. By the way, did you pick a Golden State Houston winner tonight? Did they? We cut him off. We don't need to hear him. We've had
He's
enough.
just happy he got it inside 4 minutes.
I can't believe it. This is shocking. Okay, every postseason series, again, currently a tight one. The Blazers, Nuggets, Sixers, Raptors both tied at 2 apiece. Rockets and Seas cannot. Their series at 2 tonight. BPI favors all the top seeds to advance and gives the Bucks an 84% chance, the best of any of the teams.
Never too early to talk about fantasy football. ESPN releasing their top 10 fantasy running back rankings today, headlined by Saquon and Zeke Elliott at number 2. But Todd Gurley, who produced the 3rd most fantasy points by a running back last season, is ranked 6th. For more on why Todd Gurley is where he is, here's Matt Berry and Daniel Dappa of Fantasy Football Now.
The skill set that Gurley has, it's ridiculous.
Gurley leaps over the pile. Touchdown, Todd Gurley.
A year like this establishes him as really one of the elite guys.
Okay, Matthew, we just set our 2019 fantasy rankings, and there was a big debate on Todd Gurley based on how his season ended.
Yeah, normally you don't have to debate the value of a player who was the #1 running back in fantasy on a per-game basis last year.
Right, but considering Gurley's knee problems and the Rams using an early 3rd-round pick on Darrell Henderson, the questions around him are all about risk.
Exactly. Taking Gurley early is almost as risky as picking you to co-host the fantasy show.
How rude.
When I get on that field, it's game time.
Todd Gurley does it again.
The engine is Todd Gurley.
Think about this, Daniel. The Rams are going to limit Gurley's touches to keep him healthy. In an offense that showed last season, it can continue to perform at a high level without him on the field. Facts are facts. Gurley now has some red flags in terms of usage and injury concerns that other top fantasy running backs don't have.
So you're dropping him down to where, Matthew?
Well, out of our rankings summit, the consensus rank for him was running back 6. I have him slightly lower than that at RB7, behind Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, David Johnson, and James Conner. Look, Gurley has enough injury risk around him that some managers might not be willing to draft him at all. Todd Gurley's time as the top running back in fantasy might be coming to an end.
Hey, just like this segment is at an end.
Well done.
Well done, guys. Still to come after Steph Curry.
Obviously monitoring how he feels, monitoring his wind, and all that comes with that. But he will be available to play short stints. No. Hey, Bill.
Hi, Brad. Last game, the bench was outscored 42-16. What does the bench need to do to play better? Especially, what does Gordon Hayward need to do to contribute more?
Yeah, I thought first of all, the Milwaukee bench played excellent. George Hill, Pat Connaughton were obviously led the charge. They were both terrific. And then from the standpoint of ours, I just think we need to be I thought we went through a couple of phases in the game where we probably weren't as organized as we needed to be and getting as good a looks as we needed to. And the other part, I felt pretty good about it. Like I felt like those guys had good looks. They missed some opportunities shooting the ball, but made plays for each other and made the right play a lot, Gordon included. So I feel like will play better and it'll be more productive. But I also thought they did some better things than the stat sheet indicated. But clearly, Connaughton and Hill made a huge difference in the game.
Jeff Zilgate, USA Today. Brad, players are stepping further and further outside the three-point line. Brook Lopez will take 30, 35-footers. How is that impacting how you defend? And once a player gets across half court, what is too far of a shot, or what are you willing to live with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends on the player. I think it depends on, you could get into the numbers with 28-footers versus 24-footers and what their efficiency is and all that stuff. But we're not just dealing with those guys shooting, in a horse game, walking down the floor or spotting up, right? We're also dealing with the fact that, they've got the guy in the middle of the floor with the ball who generates all this need for help. And so the appropriate amount of help is the big challenge against these guys because, when you're not big on Giannis, then he can get downhill, and he gets downhill and scores or gets fouled often. And then, when you are, you've got to do a great job of trying to keep the ball in front with bigger guys. But it all starts with their ability to get downhill. If they didn't have threats at the rim, it'd be a lot easier to guard these long three-point shooters. But, Giannis is one, Bledsoe's one, George Hill was one the other night on down the line. That really makes a difference.
Hey, Brad, Tom Lydon over here to your left. When you make the decision on Marcus, how much do you take into account the intangibles that he brings? That, all right, he may not be able to give us 10, 15 minutes, but in those short stints, he can give us what we think we really need from him.
Yeah, whenever you have Marcus available, you start with the intangibles, I think. And yeah, that's the number one thing. I think the things that I'm looking at, Tom, are who he best accentuates on our team. Obviously there's going to be matchups where we're going to want him to come in and guard Middleton some and those type of things. But it's also about who we think he plays best with on our team and trying to balance that out appropriately in his minutes. But there's no question he's excited to be back. People are going to be excited to have him back. And that should give us a good lift.
Kyrie said after game number 2 had to be better. Same after 3. What's coming in 4? We continue to get ahead to tip Celtics and Bucks.